Hi, welcome to That's Ready Mysterious, the show where every bite-sized mystery is rooted in reality. I'm your host, Kelly with an I, leading you through a maze of short stories that are filled with perplexing true mysteries. From missing people to unsolved crimes to eerie coincidences, each episode invites you to step into the unknown and question the ordinary. These tales aren't from fiction, they're stories history hasn't solved. Whether you seek suspense, love curious facts, or are just drawn to stories that linger in your mind, That's Ready Mysterious is your weekly passport into the truly strange, baffling, and unforgettable. Tune in and let the mysteries begin. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sreadymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about Laureen Ann Rahn. Laureen Ann Rahn was born on April 3, 1966. She disappeared on April 27, 1980, at the age of 14. What happened to her? Laureen lived in Manchester, Hillsborough County, New Hampshire, United States, in a third-floor apartment at 239 Merrimack Street with her mother, Judith Rahn. She was white and stood 5 feet 4 inches, or 1.6 meters tall. She weighed about 90 pounds, or 40.8 kilograms. She had brown hair and blue eyes. She had a scar on her upper leg, which she received from a fall into broken glass, as well as light brown birthmarks under each eye. When Laureen disappeared, she was wearing a white V-neck sweater, a blue plaid blouse, jeans, brown shoes, a heart-shaped gold ring, and a silver and blue necklace. Laureen was described by people who knew her as happy and outgoing. She liked singing and dancing and wanted to be an actress. Laureen aced all of her classes at school, Parkside Junior High. However, Laureen's aunt was concerned about a new group of friends that Laureen was spending time with. This group of friends had introduced her to alcohol and cannabis. Judith Rahn was dating a professional tennis player who was her live-in boyfriend. On April 26, 1980, Judith and her boyfriend were out of town at a tennis tournament. Laureen would have usually gone with them, but it was spring break and she asked to stay home. On the evening of April 26th, Laureen was at home with a male friend, who was 21 years old at the time, and a female friend who was the same age as Laureen, 14 years old. They drank a 6-pack of beer and some wine. Laureen's female friend said that they got intoxicated and she couldn't remember much of the night. At 12:30 a.m., the male friend heard voices out in the hallway. He thought Judith and her boyfriend had returned home, so he left through the back door. He said that Laureen locked the door behind him. Judith actually returned home around 1:15 a.m. She noticed that all the hallway light bulbs in the apartment building had been unscrewed. The hallways were dark. When she got to the apartment, she found the door unlocked. When Judith went inside, she noticed the back door was open. Judith checked Laureen's room and found her sleeping in her bed. Later, she discovered that it wasn't Laureen sleeping in her bed, but was in fact Laureen's female friend. The friend said that Laureen had started the night in her bedroom with her, but that Laureen then took a pillow and blanket and left for the living room to sleep on the couch. Laureen was nowhere to be found. Her clothes and new sneakers were in the living room near the front door. Laureen's friend said that she last saw Laureen was sleeping on the couch. Judith called the police, who responded to the home at 3:45 a.m. on April 27th. They found no signs of a struggle other than dark hallways and open doors and thought that Laureen must have left willingly. They said it looked like she might return soon. Judith said Laureen wouldn't do that and definitely wouldn't have voluntarily left behind her purse and clothing. A few weeks later, the police reconsidered. They began an investigation, but there were no clues at the apartment and no leads from the friends that had been with Laureen in her apartment on the night of her disappearance. In October of 1980, Judith opened her phone bill to discover that she had been charged for 3 phone calls from California 3 months after Laureen's disappearance. Judith didn't have any friends or relatives in California, and Laureen had never lived there. 2 of the phone calls came from a motel in Santa Monica and were placed to another motel in Santa Ana. The 3rd call was to a teen sexual assistance hotline. The plastic surgeon who maintained the hotline said that he didn't know anything about the call, later changing his tune. In 1981, a family member of Laureen's said that they thought they might have seen her in Boston, Massachusetts bus terminal. For about a year after Laureen disappeared, Judith received mysterious phone calls. They always came around 3:45 a.m., and the caller never said anything. The calls continued to come for several years afterward around Christmas time. The caller just listened silently when Laureen's sister answered the call, then hung up shortly after. The calls finally stopped when Judith changed her phone number several years after Laureen's disappearance. In 1985, the doctor that ran the sexual assistance hotline said that some runaways occasionally visited him and his wife at their home. One of the runaways that had visited him was from New Hampshire. The girl said that Annie Sprinkle, a woman who worked with the doctor's wife in the fashion industry, might have some information on some runaways. The police discovered that Annie Sprinkle was involved in the pornography industry. They looked through some of her films trying to find Laureen with no success. There was no evidence found to link Laureen to Annie Sprinkle, and Sprinkle was not involved in Laureen's disappearance. That same year, in 1985, the boy who had been drinking with Laureen committed suicide. He had never been considered a suspect. In 1986, an investigator went to California on Judith's behalf. He found the 2 motels related to the phone calls. The police said that one of the motels might have been used by a child pornographer named Dr. Z. The police could not link him to the hotline, and it's not known if child pornography might be linked to Laureen's disappearance. In fact, her disappearance might not be linked to pornography at all. Also in 1986, Laureen's childhood friend, Roger Moraes, received a phone call from a woman calling herself Lori or Laureen. Moraes' mother answered the call and said the person who was calling claimed to be her son's former girlfriend. It's still unknown who called him. In 1988, a witness said that a sex worker in Anchorage, Alaska matched Laureen's description. This is the last reported sighting of Laureen. The sighting, however, was based on a picture of Laureen from 1980, so it's not likely that the witness actually saw Laureen. After Laureen's disappearance, Judith moved to Florida and has since remarried. She believed that the phone calls she received in the early mornings in 1980 were from Laureen. She thinks her daughter is still alive and that some of her acquaintances know more about her disappearance than they are admitting. Investigators believe that foul play was involved and don't think Laureen is still alive. 6 weeks after Laureen disappeared, so did a neighbor of hers, Denise Denault. Denault was 25 at the time of her disappearance and has yet to be found. Supposedly she looked similar to Laureen, but their disappearances are not believed to be linked. It's thought that Denault was the victim of the serial killer Terry Rasmussen, but Laureen is not thought to be one of his victims. MissingKids.org has an age progression picture of Laureen posted on their website. The picture is progressed to 55 years old. The Manchester Police Department only has an age progression picture to 31 years old. The police have several theories as to what might have happened to Laureen. They think foul play must have been involved. Tony Fowler, detective lieutenant on the case, said that she might have left to meet someone quickly and intended to return shortly given that the door was unlocked and her shoes were not worn, but that person abducted her instead. Some investigators suspect her disappearance may be related to child pornography industry. What happened to Laureen Ann Rahn? Was she abducted, or did she leave on her own? Do her friends know more about her disappearance than they are saying? What do you think? Thank you for joining me on our adventure through today's mystery. The stories that That's Ready Mysterious covers are often stranger than fiction. If you enjoyed today's tale, subscribe to make sure you never miss a story that challenges the ordinary and reveals the mysterious. Until next time, keep questioning, and remember the world is full of mysteries yet to be explored.